Welcome to another edition of MLB Pro Happy Hour. Tonight is a Wednesday night, July 18th. We are a day past the 2018 MLB Pro All-Star Game, where I think we need to begin by talking about that. Where yesterday's All-Star Game took place, nation's capital, Washington, D.C. The National League, behind a 8-run fourth inning, defeated the American League All-Stars 11-6. National League catcher via the San Francisco Giants, Braulio Pardo, walked away as MVP, hit a grand slam, drove in, I believe, 4 runs in the game. And the National League was just too much for the American League in the end. Pardo 1 for 3 with his grand slam, struck out twice. Other standouts, Jeffrey Marte of the New York Mets, 2 for 2, drove in a run. Armando Cabanas of the Braves had 2 RBIs. Giancarlo Stanton, the Padres, 2 RBI game. Will Myers voted in as DH for the Colorado Rockies, 2 hits and 3 at-bats, 2 runs scored and an RBI. Brett Lowry had 2 hits, 2 runs, and an RBI. National League pitchers, we had Don Porter, the Chicago Cubs, undefeated on the season, walked away with the win. Some young pitchers in the National League stood out. Raynel Villette, 1 inning, no hits, 2 strikeouts, followed up an inning later by Miami Marlin rookie Walker Buehler, 1 inning, 2 strikeouts, no hits allowed. Over in the American League, you had a hit and a run scored by Travis Jankowski, a 2-hit game for the likes of Bryce Harper, Gary Sanchez. Gary Copeland went 0 for 3 in a bit of a surprise. You had Edgardo Arredondo, 1 for 5, didn't provide the spark in the middle of the American League lineup, leaving 6 runners on base. A somewhat controversial selection to the All-Star team, Pagura from the Texas Rangers is DH, hit a home run for the American League, the only home run for the AL in the game. You had Erinori Arai, 1 for 2, Daniel Paolini, 1 for 3, and Michael Franco, an 0 for 2 game. On the mound in the American League, Nathan Eovaldi started the game pretty straightforward, 1 inning, 1 hit, no strikeouts. But the surprise was kind of the poor performance, I guess you have to put it that way, of the 3 managerial additions to the pitching staff. Brady Aiken, 2/3 of an inning, 4 hits, 3 earned runs. A couple innings later, you had Trevor Cahill of the Texas Rangers going 2/3 of an inning, 2 hits, 3 runs. And then Josh Collmenter from the Minnesota Twins, 1/3 of an inning pitched, 4 hits allowed, 5 earned runs. The American League relievers came in the game and finished it out. Kadir Hashim, Tanner Shepard, Robert Paulus, and Ben Rowan. No damage done, but the trio of Aiken, Cahill, and Collmenter, their poor performances were too much for the American League to overcome. After the game, Pardo, in an interview, said, "I go out there and do my best every game, All-Star game or not," en route to his 2018 MLB Pro All-Star Game MVP. That is coming out of nowhere this year. The Kansas City Royals, Rhett Parker's Royals, sitting at 57-38, a half-game lead at the moment on the Minnesota Twins. The Royals vastly outperforming their projected record. They've outperformed what they should be, according to the math people of the world, at 50-45 when they're in reality 57-38. They went out and have been building upon what they've already done, getting ready for the second half. Earlier in the week, it was or late last week rather, the acquisition of Mark Hamburger from the Dodgers in an attempt to upgrade the bullpen. But most recently, 2 more trades in the last 24 hours. The Royals reaching out to the Oakland A's and making a big trade. The Royals traded 12th overall pick from this year's draft, Logan Gilbert, out of LSU. Gilbert was 5-1 at the South Atlantic League with a 2.72 ERA in 7 games started, 47 strikeouts, 14 walks. Along with Gilbert, the Royals sent Bo Bichette, the 7th-round pick of last year's draft, a player that scouts believe has the ability to put the ball in play with an above-average bat speed. He has above-average power. It's been a bit of a disappointing start this year at Rookie League for Bichette. He was hitting .222 with an on-base percentage of .300 and only slugging .309 with 1 homer in 90 plate appearances. In addition, you have Taylor Guerreri, AAA relief pitcher, 4.32 ERA in Kansas City, the big league team last year in 41 2/3 innings pitched. This year, he split his time between AAA and the big leagues. At AAA, both out of the pen in the rotation. Guerreri has terrific stuff, tops out at 100 miles an hour. He's most likely suited as a reliever, but it'll be interesting to see if Oakland gives him a shot out of the rotation. And the 4th player the Royals sending to Oakland is shortstop Edgardo Big Country Cortez, 21-year-old, showing above-average power, lightning speed in the minors this year. He has 13 homers split across A and high A in 350 at-bats. He's 29 of 32 stealing bases. He's showing contact skills that had not been there before this season. He's a very intriguing prospect. Someone that appears to be developing nicely and could be someone who's kind of gone under the radar up until this point in time. So with these 4 players going to Oakland, the haul returning to Kansas City is in the form of 29-year-old pitcher James Paxton. Paxton, like Guerreri from the Royals, has split time between the A's bullpen and rotation. Last year, he had a 3.94 ERA and a FIP of 4.22 in 32 games started. This year, things have not gone Paxton's way. Paxton has an ERA of 5.44, a record of 3-9, a FIP of 5.48. He just hasn't been able to have the same success that he had last year in Oakland. Most recently, he's been coming out of the pen. In his final appearance for Oakland, just the other day against San Francisco, he pitched in 1 1/3 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs scored. It'll be interesting to see what he does for Kansas City. Paxton has a career worst 5.4 strikeouts per 9 innings pitched. Despite all this, he still has a above average fastball, a slider, a curveball. He throws an occasional changeup. He was signed prior to this season to an extension that'll keep him under team control through the 2022 season. Not only Paxton, but recently acquiring Gio Gonzalez from the Chicago White Sox. You have the stellar seasons of Drew Childs and Jordan Cote. You've got Ron Tillman, who continues to show promise. It gives the Royals depth and options, and they're hoping the acquisition of Paxton mirrors the earlier in the season acquisition of Noah Syndergaard, also from Oakland. Syndergaard has a 3.86 ERA in 58 1/3 innings, 52 strikeouts, and just 18 walks. In Oakland earlier in the year, in a very limited time with Oakland, he had an ERA above 8. Royals pitching coach Jose Rosado has a strong track record of working with power pitchers. It's his 2nd season in Kansas City. He's most notably helped the Bluefield Blue Jays win the Appalachian League playoffs 3 years in a row prior to joining the Royals. So you add in the acquisitions of Gonzalez and Paxton and Mark Hamburger, and you're hoping to see vast improvements from a Royals team that since June 1st has the 2nd worst team ERA in baseball at 4.95, only better than the Boston Red Sox team ERA of 5.33. As we've seen the Minnesota Twins and Rockies team get incredibly hot of late, it'll be very interesting to see how Kansas City starts the second half of the season. Kansas City obviously, or most recently, took 2 of 3 in a wild series against the Minnesota Twins, which included last Tuesday's 20-15 win over the Twins. The Royals and Twins begin the second half of the season playing each other. 3-game series in Kansas City. But the Royals weren't done just making moves in an attempt to better their rotation and bullpen. They also most recently added James Darnell from the Boston Red Sox, a power-hitting right field DH. It's not fleet of foot. It's average defense at best, but he's known for his bat. They sent Joel Zumaya, someone the Royals DFA'd recently. Zumaya, 9.1 ERA this year, split between the Royals and Brewers. He just hasn't had it. Coming off of a strong year, Zumaya has been a big-time disappointment. He was included for what many believe simply to be salary purposes. The two players the Red Sox are high on are J.R. Graham, coming off the DL, 28-year-old, throws 100 miles an hour, has a plus sinker, but he tore his flexor tendon in the first game of the season. His 2018 season's done. So while we won't see Graham this year, we will likely see Trent Higginbotham joining the Red Sox bullpen at some point this year. Higginbotham has a 9.3 strikeout per 9 in 31 big league innings this year, plus stuff, someone the Red Sox can help rebuild a bullpen with. The question with Darnell and Kansas City, there's one big question, rather, and that's where's he going to play and how's it going to affect their defense. The Royals already have the 13th best American League defensive efficiency, so defense has been a concern of the Royals all season long. You're acquiring another right fielder by trade, and it's likely going to cause Miguel Velasquez to move to left field. Velasquez has only played 172 career innings in left field in his 565-game Major League Baseball career. So while the Royals' offense will take a step forward, their defense could suffer. And for a team whose ERA and pitching staff has faltered here in the last month and a half in a tight divisional race and a wild card race that's going to come down to the end, any defensive mistakes in the outfield could prove costly. But again, if you're replacing the likes of Floyd Wallace, the current left fielder of the Royals, who was hitting 9th in the lineup, hitting .257 with 5 homers and 16 RBIs, he wasn't giving you much. You throw James Darnell maybe in the 6 spot, 7 spot, hitting behind Velasquez, Sanchez, McNeil, maybe above or below Jose Rosario. The lineup gets that much deeper. You still have Ivan Chavez, the center fielder, power and speed combo, maybe hitting 9th. For a team that's in the top 5 in batting average, on base percentage, slugging, OPS, runs scored, extra base hits, home runs, and walks, the Royals aren't going anywhere. They are certainly one of the big surprises of the season. But it's also worth noting they have the second easiest schedule remaining in the American League. Part of that might be the divisional matchups with the Tigers and Indians. And even for that matter, the White Sox, the weakest of the third-place teams in the American League at the moment. It gives the Royals perhaps a advantage in terms of maintaining a wild card spot if the Twins were to pass them. Because while the Royals have the second easiest schedule remaining this season in the American League, the easiest schedule does belong to the Minnesota Twins. On the topic of teams or players that have maybe surprised a bit here in the first half, I wanted to take a second and look at look across the league and highlight some of these. I want to begin with a team that won a division last year, a team that for the first time last year had a franchise ERA under 4, and yet I sit here and I think we should all be surprised about something. Not only do the Baltimore Orioles have the best record in baseball, which shouldn't be a surprise. Again, they won the American League East last year. They've been incredibly active in the offseason. They were incredibly active during the season. They overhauled many parts of their team. They weren't afraid to ship off youngster Anthony Hale. They were fearless in their pursuit of getting better. And an area where they've gotten better to the point I don't think many people saw coming was their pitching staff. The Orioles' current team ERA of 3.15 would be the best in MLB Pro history, breaking a record set by the 2017 Seattle Mariners. The likes of Cruzado, Aiken, White, you have the likes of Vizcaino and Gabriel Flores in the bullpen. They recently acquired Hawley from the Houston Astros. Marcus Stroman going back and forth between the rotation and the bullpen. They have options everywhere. it'll be very interesting to see what they do with highly regarded prospect Ash Russell, who was a part of the Anthony Hale trade, coming off of a ruptured ulnar collateral ligament. Could be ready late in the season. Will he get a call up maybe for the bullpen? Do they look to add anyone by trade? There is a little concern of late. In July, Steve White has allowed 15 runs on 23 hits and 21 innings pitched. You have Brady Aiken coming off of a poor All-Star game, having allowed 12 runs on 19 hits in just 16 and a third innings here in July. And Juan Romero, 10 runs on 17 hits and 11 and two-thirds innings pitched in July. Will the Oriole pitchers have enough in them the rest of the way? It'll be very interesting. You've got the 20 games plus started, and Cruzado and White Aikens pitched a lot of innings. Drew Taylor's gotten some starts, nine games started this year, 23 appearances overall for the Royals, the 43 and 42 appearances for Flores and Vizcaino. If Cruzado, White, and Aiken can maintain what they've given up until July, the Baltimore Orioles will set a record this year. They will have the best record going into the playoffs, and they will be a legitimate threat and likely a favorite to win the World Series this year. Another player, or in this case, a player that has surprised just about everyone, I think you have to go to the NL West and the 2018 National League All-Star starting pitcher, Parker Markle. After going 5-15 last season in Pittsburgh with an ERA of 4.12 and 177 innings pitched, the Pirates decided not to offer Markle arbitration. They were ready to part ways with their starting pitcher. I think people weren't quite sure what to make of Markle. He hit the free agent market, but it didn't take long for the Dodgers to sign him to a 5-year, $95 million deal. On the basis that his FIP last year, 3.23, wasn't a fluke. And it's proven not to be. Markle has improved his FIP this year to 3.09. He's a career best whip. He leads the National League in wins, innings pitched. He's second in ERA. While the Dodgers have regressed a little bit this year, currently sitting at 45-51, 9.5 games out of first place, they're within striking distance. You have two of the National League's best hitters over the last month in Javier Garcia leading the way. What they decide to do with the likes of Phil Hughes, someone they acquired from the Philadelphia Phillies earlier in the year, will they shop him between now and the deadline if things don't go their way? You have Matt Kemp, big contract. Production has definitely taken a step backwards this year. Is he someone that they'd be willing to move? Avery Barnes having a very strong year in left field for the Dodgers. Final year next year of team control, arbitration, currently projected to make $9 million. The type of bat that maybe the Dodgers look to acquire a couple prospects for. If you're a team in need of a bat, you have Avery Barnes. 179 at-bats, hitting .324, on-base percentage above .430. Can play both corner outfield spots. Maybe he's a DH in the American League. But he is someone that could make teams better. Other surprises this year, I think you have to stay in the National League a little bit, and maybe another disappointing team this season in the St. Louis Cardinals, a team that traditionally is among the best in the National League, never having been under 500 at the end of a year. They've won more than 86 games all but 1 year in Major League Pro history. The Cardinals this year, 41-53, 12 games under 500 here at the All-Star break, yet just 4 games out of first place. Well within striking distance. It's weird to see the Cardinals with an ERA, team ERA that ranks 13th in the National League, though. And it's not at the fault of the likes of Clayton Kershaw, Jeffrey LeBlanc, Edwin Jackson, or Antonio Cruz, the rotation really hasn't been the problem. It's been the likes of Houston Street, 9 losses in the closer role. Cesar Aguilar has been disappointing in the setup role this year. Things just have not clicked quite right for the St. Louis Cardinals. And of course, just the other day, news broke of the injury to Cedric Rutherford, all-star second baseman. He was injured in a freak off-field accident. Reports circulated that he suffered an undisclosed injury which happened while punching a wall during a fight with his girlfriend. What's that going to cause with the Cardinals lineup here the next 3 to 4 weeks with Rutherford out? Hitting in the 2-hole in front of Evan Longoria, it's a big blow. Having already lost Jay Bruce earlier in the season, the lineup is a giant question mark for the St. Louis Cardinals. You obviously have Evan Longoria still having an all-star season, a on-base machine for the Cardinals, but Justin Upton has taken a step backwards. Juan Espinosa has taken a step back. It has definitely been a disappointing season for the Cardinals, and really, I think you can stay in the division and say, well, we knew Justin Jabs was rebuilding this year. There was no question about that motive back at the Rule 5 draft when the Cubs were as active as anyone has ever been in the Rule 5 draft. But to be 34-61, it's disappointing for Cub fans. And this is a year after winning 85 games. The fewest wins the Cubs have in their team history, 69, 2012, and 2014. But 85 wins last year. And while it was a fourth-place finish, it was a division that was really tight. The Cubs underperformed last year at their 85 wins. To this, not only rebuilding, but the extent to which the rebuild has reached, I think has Cub fans disappointed in seeing what this team is looking like at the moment. It'll be interesting to see what the Cubs do here in the second half. Other teams worthy of a look around the league quickly. The Reds obviously have been dealing with injury after injury after injury. Now, news here in the last 24, 48 hours are trade talks involving trainer Chris Kingsley and management dealing with a question of, has it been bad luck or is Kingsley at fault? And I don't think anyone can truly answer that question. But maybe a change to the training staff sparks the Reds here in the second half. A team in the National League, I think we can say, has pleasantly surprised. I think their fans, I think management expected a step forward, but the Miami Marlins sitting 2 games under 500 here at the All-Star break. Just a year after winning 66 games last year, 78 the year before, they paid a pretty dollar to bring in Miguel Cabrera. Having an all-star season at first base for the Marlins, and of course the standout seasons, I think you could say, by both Lance McCullers and Walker Buehler, having acquired John Lamb from the Cleveland Indians earlier. Lamb in 6 starts with the Marlins is 4-1 with an ERA of 2.56. They're positioning themselves to have one of the better rotations in the National League moving forward. Obviously stuck in a division with 2 stalwarts in the Braves and the Mets. But the Marlins are a team that could make a playoff push. You're looking at the NL West, really the only other threat for the second wild card spot. A 3-team race at the moment, with the Padres having a half-game lead on the Rockies and a 3.5-game lead on the Giants in the division, and the Giants at 52 and 46. Just 3 games out from Colorado, the Marlins 7 games behind the Rockies for the second playoff spot. But Ryan could make a push with the Marlins. Anything's possible. Loaded with young talent potentially to trade away, especially on the mound. The likes of Alex Watts, Gerald Spalton, Dane Greer, Jordan Sheffield, Griffin Canning. they have ammo to make a run at something. Over in the American League, I think it's been pretty straightforward. We knew Matt Wells in Houston was going to continue to rebuild, and their future remains beyond scary. Whether it's Sports Illustrated, Baseball America, ESPN Magazine, the Houston Astros are the team of the future. I don't think anyone denies that with a team that frankly it seems like has more than you can count prospects inside the top 20. The number one farm system in baseball by a wide margin. The top prospect, Darsh Kawhi. You have a shortstop in Aaron White, top 10 prospect. The acquisition of Ron Winterhalter just weeks ago in the Ronald Acuna trade with the White Sox. So a Winterhalter catcher, top 15 prospect, the elite catching prospect in the league, along with Chris Betts over in Cleveland. You have a pitcher in Will Rainey, a top 20 prospect, Mickey Moniak, acquired recently from Tampa Bay in a trade for Carroll Curtis. Houston just, I don't know if it's next season. I don't know if it's 2020. But the Astros are a scary bunch. You have Texas that continues to add their trade for James Caprillion earlier in the year from Houston. A team that continues to fight with the Mariners and Angels, two teams that continue just to sit at the top of the West. I don't think anyone's surprised there. The Central, obviously we talked about the Royals earlier, a big-time surprise. No one's shocked by Rocky returning to the top of the Central. I think it deserves mention of the play of the White Sox here in July. 9-4. They've turned it around. 5th best ERA in the American League. Their starters have the 4th best ERA. The bullpen has been a struggle for the White Sox this season. Offense at times is inconsistent outside of the likes of Luis Serrano and Miguel Leon. But they're clear in cap. They're clear in salary. The recent trades of both Matt Cain and Gio Gonzalez to find suitors and to pick up a prospect or two. They still have pieces to get better, not this year, but next season. A team that is flying under the radar and really headed in the opposite direction of the Detroit Tigers, who have obviously injuries haven't been kind. You had Steven Strasburg go down. You had Casey Crosby go down. I believe Brian Wilson was hurt for a period of time this year. It just hasn't been the year of the Detroit Tigers. Brett Anderson, 3.11 ERA, as high as it's ever been. Paul Clemens, 1.9, 5.32 ERA. Even Josh Johnson, his ERA is under 3, and his win-loss record's only 7-7. Things have not gone well for the Detroit Tigers. It'll be interesting to see what they do here in the next 2 or 3 weeks with the likes of Strasburg and Joe Mauer. Do they move Brett Anderson, Scott Albert out of the bullpen? Casey Crosby could be a piece a playoff team is interested in. They'll be interesting to see what they do here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And ever since Mitch Bannon joined the Toronto Blue Jays, it's worthy of mentioning just how potent the Blue Jays are. 17-8 in May, 17-9 in June. They've taken a step back here in July to 6-7. But they have the best starters ERA in the American League. When you're looking at the quartet, really, of Verlander, Pineda, Martinez, and Price, it's a quartet that is set up well for the playoffs. Whether all 4 pitch, one heads maybe to the bullpen in a divisional setting, they're dangerous. The recent acquisitions of Klaus Bongers from Milwaukee, Kelvin Herrera now at the back end of the bullpen. The Toronto Blue Jays are very good. Acquiring Jesus Montero. How about Don Winston hitting .305 with 10 homers in the limited time for the Blue Jays? You have a lineup that's cooking. You have a rotation that's cooking. They will have to deal with injuries. Sergio Romo, herniated disc in his back, out 5 weeks. The recent injury to J.D. Martinez will keep him out 1 to 2 more weeks here as we begin the second half. Javi Guerra should be ready to start the second half, but he is dealing with a mild hamstring strain. What will his workload be? You had Tim Hampton go down center field with a bone marrow in his knee problem, 4 to 5 weeks. how active will Toronto be between now and the deadline? And I think one other team worthy of mention, simply because rumors are circulating here tonight in terms of trade acquisition material, is the Boston Red Sox. We've seen them be busy earlier today with James Darnell. We've seen a couple other trades out of Boston recently, but two more names to keep an eye on are Dominic Brown. Rumor has it 2 teams have inquired on Brown. Brown is a high salary player, one of the highest paid players in Major League Pro at the moment, $27.5 million. The power's there. He's a run producer. He gets on base, but his batting average is really struggling this year, hitting .225. I believe that is a career low, coming off of .265 last year. How much is a team willing to pay for a player that isn't producing and being paid that much? But if he's able to turn things around, he could be a cheap addition for a team in terms of what they'd have to give up. It'll be interesting to see which teams are actually involved there. Another player rumored to not only be on the market, but apparently is deep within trade talks at the moment, is Trevor Bauer. Just weeks ago, the Red Sox seemed pretty adamant that Bauer wasn't going to be moved at all. But I think the more and more you look at it, he just doesn't seem like a match for Fenway Park. His ERA, again, is at 5.53, 110 innings pitched. It's 3-11. At Fenway this year, he's 1-5 with an ERA of 4.26. He possesses 4 great pitches, a fastball, a plus slider, a plus curve, and then one of the league's best changeups. But if things aren't working, at what point do you just have to abandon ship with Bauer? Bauer's entering his final year arbitration this offseason. He's going to be someone who could be making anywhere from $8 to $10 million next year, and is likely asking for an extension at the bare minimum of anywhere from $15 to $20 million a season. If you're rebuilding like the Red Sox are, that's a tough pill to swallow, to pay a player that much money who just isn't producing. Is Bauer a relief pitcher the rest of the year? Does the team take advantage of his stuff? Does a team take the chance out of putting him in the rotation? Rumor had it that a couple National League East teams were the favorites, as the Red Sox are very hesitant to keep him in the American League. And I think when you then look at that, there are 3 teams. Is it the Mets? Is it the Braves? Is it the Marlins? The Mets have tons of pitching, but they also recently lost Max Scherzer to 3 weeks with an elbow injury. Are they looking to add to the recently acquired via the Red Sox John Lester? You have Alberto Vega, Jonathan Neese, and Zach Lee, Vance Worley. Are they a team? I lean towards no. We know Brenton in Atlanta is always ready to make a move. Rumblings out of Atlanta recently being that they're trying to move pitchers. Tyler Pill was on the block. Cadet was on the block. Casey Kelly was on the block. Do I see them trading a pitcher having a strong year for a pitcher not having a good year? I tend to say no. And in that regard, I think the team to watch to make a move for Bauer is, in fact, the team I suggested earlier in this that could make a move, and that's the Miami Marlins. Just as John Lamb was worthy of a risk via Cleveland, why isn't Trevor Bauer worth a risk to add to McCullers, Buehler, and Lamb? You could have 4 great pitchers all of a sudden if Bauer turned things around in Miami. It's just speculation at this point, but the team to keep an eye on in the Trevor Bauer pursuit would be the Miami Marlins. Taking a step away from rumors for a second, let's look back at this first half of the season and players. Who have been the best players of the year? What would the award season look like if the season were to end today? I want to begin with the American League, where I think we have an easy decision between 2 players for AL MVP. It's going to be Gary Sanchez or Gary Copeland. One of the Garys is walking away with the MVP. If I was hard-pressed to pick today, I don't know how it is not Kansas City Royal Gary Sanchez. Sanchez is hitting .328, Major League best 33 homers, 102 RBIs here at the All-Star break. Carrying the Kansas City Royals to the best of the American League Central. Obviously, Gary Copeland isn't far behind. Hitting .343, on-base percentage of .458. He's slugging a ridiculous .624, 27 homers, 76 RBIs. Having another fantastic season here in Minnesota. Career high batting average at the break, career high on-base percentage, career high slugging. OPS is ridiculous, 1083. Helping propel the Twins here the last 3 weeks to within a half game of the division lead. It's one of the two. If Kansas City wins the division, I think it's Gary Sanchez. If Kansas City sneaks into the playoffs, I think it's Gary Sanchez. If the Royals fall short of the playoffs and the Twins make the playoffs, I think Gary Copeland has the edge. It'll be fascinating to watch those two go back and forth here the next 2.5 months to decide American League MVP. On the mound, there's someone that an anonymous American League GM told me earlier today, and he said, I see there is no way this guy doesn't win the Cy Young. This guy has the American League best ERA at 2.17. He leads the American League in wins at 14. He has 115 strikeouts, trailing David Price's 136 by 21. And this, of course, is the American League All-Star starting pitcher, Nathan Eovaldi. Eovaldi has the Mariners here with a division lead at the All-Star break, or tied with the Angels, I believe. Leading a rotation that has seen Felix Hernandez and Danny Hultzen struggle at times. If Eovaldi were to win the Triple Crown, obviously he walks away with the Cy Young. But I think there's a pitcher that is kind of under the radar in terms of Cy Young contention at the moment. This pitcher is an all-star, so it's tough to say he's totally under the radar. But Carlos Martinez of the Toronto Blue Jays, 9-5, an ERA 2.47, 131 1/3 innings pitched, 110 strikeouts, a WHIP of 1.8, 1.06. 80% of his starts have been of the quality start variety. He's third in the American League in ERA, second in WHIP. He's the AL best in hits per 9 innings pitched, opponent batting average, opponent slugging percentage, and opponent OPS. What else can you ask for at that point? If the Toronto Blue Jays, behind a strong second half of Carlos Martinez, win the American League East if they were able to rally and overtake the Orioles, why could Carlos Martinez not be named Cy Young winner? It'll be very interesting. Over the National League, much like the American League, I think MVP is a two-horse race. You've got Giancarlo Stanton in San Diego, and you got the Mets' Josh Wilcox. Stanton has the NL's best batting average at .344. He's third in on-base percentage. He leads the NL in slugging. He's tied with Josh Wilcox with 29 homers. His 69 RBIs is tied with Anthony Hale for second place. The Padres are 56-43, a half-game lead in the National League West, and Stanton's doing all of this at Petco Park. It's quite impressive. But not to be outdone, you have Josh Wilcox of the New York Mets. He's third in batting average at .327. He's second in slugging, second in OPS, both behind Stanton. He's tied for the league lead in home runs with Stanton. He leads the National League in RBIs. If Josh Wilcox gets hot and Stanton slumps at all, he could overtake him in batting average. We could be looking at a triple crown for Josh Wilcox. And this is coming after his rookie season last year, in which Wilcox hit .234 with 7 homers and 201 at-bats. He recently credited his offseason swing change with first-year Mets hitting coach Bruce Fields. He's able to transition to the ball better, opening up his stance. The bat's getting through the zone quicker, and he's no longer just looking to pull the ball, going all fields, and he's proven to be a real threat in the middle of the Mets lineup. You pair him with Den Decker, and there's no coincidence that the Mets once again are sitting in the National League driver's seat with the Atlanta Braves, among the best. A team that is there every single year. While I think it's a two-horse race for league MVP in the National League, I think the National League Cy Young race is anything but clear. As of today, there are 5 pitchers that I think have the best shot, but I think there are other guys out there that can make a run. As of today, I think Orlando Garcia has the edge. Again, like Stanton has to deal with Petco Park as a hitter, I think what Orlando Garcia is doing at Coors Field has been tremendous. Garcia on the year, 19 games started, 11-1 record, a 2.44 ERA, 94 strikeouts, just 16 walks. He's only allowed 8 home runs on the season. He's won his last 6 decisions, allowing no more than 2 runs in his last 7 starts. A pitcher that has revolutionized the pitching staff for the Rockies. A pitching staff with Garcia, with Judd Graham, with Craig Cooper, and with Ronald Dunham that give the Rockies hope every single start, whether at Coors Field or on the road. And in a division with the Padres having a young staff in the combo of Broderick Wilson and Michael Matula, the Rockies pitchers have performed even better. So I think Garcia, as of today, might have the edge over the likes of Parker Markle, who we discussed earlier, of the LA Dodgers. You have Clayton Kershaw in St. Louis, while his traditional numbers might not be where you would expect. He continues to ultimately perform at a high level in the National League. Top 5 in games started, top 5 in innings pitched. League leader in strikeouts per 9 innings pitched. The National League pitching leader in WAR by almost a full win. Clayton Kershaw's right there. 2 other pitchers that I would keep an eye on in the NL Cy Young race would be San Francisco Giant Bryce Bandia. Currently 10-3, ERA of 2.68, 134 innings pitched, 121 strikeouts, 19 walks. And Atlanta Brave Matt Barnes. 3rd in the National League in ERA, 5th in wins. He has 2 complete games on the year. Top 5 in strikeouts, 128. Top 5 in strikeouts per 9 innings pitched. A real contender if the Braves come up on top in the National League East. It'll be an interesting couple of months here for the award season. It'll be an interesting couple of months coming up for not months, but a couple of weeks with the trade market as we approach the trade deadline and then the August waiver trade period. It'll be interesting to see what happens in New York with the Yankees. A recent change atop the front office. Hank Steinbrenner making a move. What will they do? It is unclear when a position will be filled there. But we shall see in New York. The East as a whole, the Orioles and Blue Jays battling. You have the Central battling it out with the Royals and Twins. The West is a 3-team race: the Dodgers, the Mariners, and the Rangers. Needless to say, there is going to be a very good American League team sitting at home come playoff time. And the same really can be said true of the National League. While I think the Mets and Braves are in position to both make the playoffs, I think the Marlins are going to test them. The Central, despite all being under 500, is wide open. The Pirates in 4th place at 40 and 55 are only 5.5 games back. And then over in the National League West, while the Padres have that half-game lead on the Rockies, I think the team to watch still is the Giants, having battled with injuries all season long. And I think the Dodgers aren't ready to throw in the towel yet, 9.5 back. And I think Arizona isn't ready this year, despite having gone 16-12 last month. And I think they're still well positioned for the future with the likes of Scott Clark and Michael Wacha and Andrew Morales, who's jumped upon the scene here in his rookie season. Recently traded catcher Kyle Skipworth back to the Marlins. We've seen another strong year from the like of Rich Dixon. Daz Cameron has performed well for the Astros. They're not ready this year, but a team that added Vlad Guerrero Jr. with the top pick in the draft a team that could be a team in the future. But those other four, the Padres, the Rockies, the Giants, the Dodgers, likely two of them make the playoffs. I don't think there's any way around it. So not only the battle for first place, but the battle for second place will be worth watching here between July 18th and the end of September. Taking a look at chat, we have no comments from you guys tonight. As always, much appreciated for sticking with me here on an episode that, frankly, I didn't prepare for as much as I normally do. So going off the cusp, as they say. So I appreciate you putting up with me on another night of MLB Pro Happy Hour. I will be back perhaps later this weekend. So as always, get your rumors over via Slack PM. I'll be happy to report in chat and happy hour and all that good stuff. Thank you for listening, and best of luck to everyone here in the second half of the 2018 MLB Pro season. Thanks, guys.